There is a moment in every interaction where power shifts. Most men never see it happen. They only feel the result, the distance, the disinterest, the sudden sense that they are working harder than she is. By the time they notice, the shift is complete, and it is almost always irreversible. This moment is not about what you said. It is not about what you did. It is about what you stopped doing. And the men who understand this do not chase. They do not convince. They do not perform. They simply become silent at the precise moment when most men become louder. And in that silence, something unexpected happens. She begins to move toward him. This is not a technique. This is not a strategy to be deployed like a trick. This is the natural consequence of a specific psychological shift that occurs inside a man who has stopped needing the response he is seeking. And until you understand why this works, why silence properly held creates more gravitational pull than any words you could assemble, you will remain the man who is always one step behind, always explaining, always trying to generate momentum that should have been there already. Most men operate from a model of attraction that is fundamentally reactive. They feel interest, they signal interest, they escalate interest. They believe that clarity is kindness, that persistence shows commitment, that she cannot respond to what she does not know. So they inform her, they remind her, they check in, follow up, clarify intentions, remove ambiguity. They treat attraction like a sales process that closes through logical persistence and transparent communication. This model fails because it ignores what actually creates desire. Desire is not a response to clarity. Desire is a response to uncertainty managed by strength. When you remove all uncertainty, when you make your interest constant, visible, and verbally confirmed, you remove the psychological conditions that allow her mind to generate its own momentum. She knows where you stand. She knows you will wait. She knows you are available. And knowing this, she feels no urgency to decide, no tension to resolve, no space to move into. The silence that makes women pursue is not the silence of absence. It is not the silence of ignoring, of coldness, of manipulation. It is the silence of a man who is fully present but no longer projecting need. The silence of a man who has reached the limit of his investment and is now observing, not performing. The silence that says, without words, I have shown you who I am. The next move is yours. Most men never reach this silence. They talk through it. They fill it with reassurance, with humor, with additional proof of their value. They mistake her silence for a request for more input. They mistake her hesitation as a sign that they have not explained themselves well enough, so they explain again. And in that explanation, they demonstrate the exact quality that kills attraction, the inability to tolerate uncertainty without action. Consider what happens in a typical interaction. You meet her. The conversation flows. You feel a connection, yet you express that connection directly. You tell her you're interested, you ask for more of her time, you make your intentions clear. She responds with warmth, but not commitment. She is still there, still engaged, but not moving forward. At this point, most men increase pressure. They ask where they stand. They try to clarify the relationship. They become more available, more responsive, more present in her field of attention. They believe that if they can just remove her uncertainty, she will choose them. She does not choose them. She drifts. She becomes busy. She responds more slowly. The warmth cools. And the man, confused, believes he has not been clear enough. So he clarifies again. He has now entered the chase. And the chase, psychologically, is the position of the one who needs more than the other. The one who is still trying to generate what should already exist. The man who understands silence operates differently. He reaches the same point, the warmth without commitment, the engagement without forward movement, and he stops, not as a tactic, not to trigger a response. He stops because he has reached the boundary of his own willingness to perform. He has offered what he has to offer. He will not escalate his investment beyond what is being reciprocated. He will not explain, convince, or reassure. He will simply remain silent and watch. This silence is uncomfortable. For him, because it requires tolerating the possibility that she may not move. For her, because it removes the familiar structure of a man who is always available, always explaining, always waiting. In that discomfort, when something becomes visible, whether she has any genuine interest or whether she was simply enjoying the attention of a man who would never stop giving it. Most men will not hold this silence. They will break it with a message, a call, a joke, some attempt to rekindle momentum. And when they break it, they confirm what she suspected, that his silence was never real, that his boundary was never firm, that he will always return to the chase if she simply waits long enough. The silence that makes women pursue must be held long enough to become believable, not hours, days, sometimes longer. Long enough that she feels the actual possibility of his absence. In dating, this silence appears after you have expressed clear interest and received ambiguity in return. You do not ask again. You do not remind her. You return to your life with complete attention. She will feel the shift, not as coldness, but as the removal of something she had begun to take for granted. If she has genuine interest, she will move to restore it. If she does not, she will not. Both outcomes are information. Both are preferable to the slow death of the chase. In established relationships, this silence appears when you have repeatedly communicated a need and received no response. Most men either explode, making the need emotional and dramatic, or they withdraw into resentment, becoming cold and passive-aggressive. The silence of power is neither. It is the calm cessation of effort in a specific area until she recognizes what has stopped. You do not punish. You do not announce. You simply stop filling the space and you observe whether she notices. In social hierarchy, this silence appears when you are being tested, when someone challenges you, dismisses you, or attempts to dominate the interaction. Most men either submit or escalate into conflict. The man who understands silence does neither. He stops responding to the test. He does not explain himself. He does not defend. He holds eye contact, says nothing, and allows the silence to become heavy. The challenger, deprived of the reaction they sought, is left holding the tension they created. This is how respect is established without words. The discipline required for this silence is significant. You must be able to tolerate the internal pressure to act. The anxiety that silence means loss, that waiting means weakness, that you must do something to maintain your position. This pressure is not a signal to act. It is the exact sensation you must learn to sit with. Every time you break silence out of anxiety, you reinforce the pattern of the chase. Every time you hold it, you reinforce the identity of a man who does not need the response to remain complete. The framework is simple. First, you establish your position clearly once, not repeatedly, once. You express interest, state your boundary, communicate your need with precision and without apology. Second, you observe the response, not the words, the behavior. Does she move toward you or away? Does she adjust or delay? Third, you match your investment to what is actually being reciprocated, not what you hope will be reciprocated, what actually is. Fourth, when you reach the point where further words would be explanation or pursuit, you stop. You become silent, and you return your attention to your own life. Fifth, you hold that silence until she either moves or confirms her absence. This is not indifference. Indifference is a wall. Silence is a door. It remains open, but it requires her to walk through it. And many women will not. This is the cost of the silence that makes others pursue. Some will not pursue. You will lose interactions that, through chase, you might have prolonged. But what you lose was never yours. What remains, what moves toward you when you stop moving toward it, is built on something real. The identity shift occurs through repetition. Each time you hold silence instead of breaking into chase, you become a man who trusts his own value enough to let others discover it. Each time you tolerate the discomfort of uncertainty without action, you build the emotional capacity that makes you unreadable, unpredictable, and therefore compelling. You stop being the man who explains. You become the man who is observed. Most men will not do this. They will read this, recognize its truth, and continue chasing because the silence feels too risky. They would rather have the illusion of progress through constant motion than the reality of selection through stillness. This is why the silence works. Because it is rare. Because it signals a man who has moved beyond the need for immediate validation. Because it creates the only conditions under which genuine desire can form. You are now at a choice point. You can continue as you have been, available, explaining, waiting, or you can establish the discipline of silence and observe what actually happens when you stop performing. As the first path is familiar, the second is where everything changes. Before you close this video, I have two questions. First, in your last interaction, where you felt interest but received ambiguity, how many times did you break your own silence before she moved, or before you finally gave up? Drop the number in the comments, not the story, the number. Second, what is the specific situation in your life right now where you know with absolute clarity that silence would be more powerful than your next explanation? Name it in the comments, not vaguely, specifically. The act of naming it is the first step toward holding it. If this video reached something in you that you have been avoiding, if it named a pattern you have lived but never seen clearly, like this video. Your like signals to this channel that you are done with surface-level advice and ready for the psychological architecture that produces real change. And if you are committed to becoming the kind of man who understands power, silence, and the internal discipline that makes both possible, subscribe to Beast Mind Psychology. This is where men learn to build from the inside out, quietly, completely, without apology. The work continues. I love you, brother, and I will see you in the next one.